Daddy, is the village very far? Chijuk's son asked from the back seat, his voice full of curiosity. Not much longer, my son, Chijuk replied with a small smile. We'll be there soon. It had been 10 years since Chijuk last stepped foot in his village, and now, as they neared the place of his childhood, a storm of emotions churned in his chest: excitement, anxiety, even a little guilt. Beside him, his wife Adora was scrolling through her phone, while their 3 children, Chisholm, Kamsi, and little Akane, chattered away in the back, bubbling with excitement. Adora looked up from her phone and glanced at her husband. My love, are you sure this is a good idea? She asked gently. We haven't been back in 10 years. Maybe we should just turn around. What if it's better to stay in the city? Chijuk reached over and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Don't worry, he said. We are going. It's important. You and the kids need to see where I come from. They need to know my roots. His parents had passed away years ago, leaving the family compound in the care of his uncle, Udo. After his business failed in the city, Udo had returned to the village. His children, Chuka and Amora, had also struggled in the city and now helped him with the farm. As their car rolled into the village of Afia, the atmosphere shifted. What used to be a quiet, sleepy place now buzzed with life. Children ran after their SUV, shouting with joy, Moto. Moto. Moto, neighbor. Women on the roadside paused to whisper among themselves, eyeing the sleek, black Lexus with admiration and curiosity. When they pulled into the compound, Uncle Udo was sitting beneath the old mango tree, sipping palm wine. He stood slowly, a wide smile stretching across his weathered face. Who am I seeing? He cried out. Chijuk, you're back. Chijuk stepped out of the car and embraced him warmly. Uncle, it's so good to see you. Adora stepped forward and greeted Udo respectfully. The children all chimed in together, Good afternoon, Grandpa. Uncle Udo smiled warmly at them, but his eyes briefly lingered on Chijuk's fine clothes and confident posture. Beside him stood his wife, Anozi, and their children, Chuka and Amora. Their expressions were hard to read, somewhere between curiosity and envy. Come inside, Udo said, leading them toward the house. The compound still stood, but it had clearly seen better days. The walls were cracked, the roof streaked with rust. Chijuk felt a sharp pang of guilt as he took it all in. His uncle had clearly done his best to hold the place together. That evening, the whole family gathered around for dinner. As the warm aroma of local dishes filled the air, Uncle Udo finally spoke up. So, Chijuks, Lagos seems to be treating you well. That car of yours looks like something a governor would drive, he said, half joking. Chijuk chuckled. God has been good, Uncle. Business has been favorable. Chuka, who had been quiet all evening, finally spoke. Sir, do you own a house in Lagos? Yes, by God's grace, Chijuk said simply. We live in our own place. Chuka exchanged a glance with his sister, Amora, who rolled her eyes. He was older than Chijuk, yet he had nothing to show for it. He wasn't even married. Deep down, he couldn't help but envy the life his cousin had built. Later that night, as Adora unpacked their bags in the room, she let out a sigh and said, Did you notice the way your uncle and his children were looking at us, Chuck? I told you coming to your village wasn't a good idea. I told you we should have stayed back in the city. Just look at the way they stared at us. Chuck ran a hand through his hair and replied gently, Yeah, I saw it. But let's not dwell on it. We are here to enjoy my hometown. Besides, maybe you're reading too much into things. The following days were filled with visits. Neighbors, relatives, they all came around, eager to see Chijuk and his family. He welcomed them with warm smiles and handed out gifts generously, even spreading some cash here and there. Before long, he became the talk of the village. But not everyone was smiling. The more admiration Chijuk received, the more it stirred something dark in a few hearts. One morning, Chijuk walked outside and froze. A long, deep scratch ran along the side of his car. What happened? Adora gasped, rushing to his side. I don't know, Chuck said, jaw tightening. I have no idea who did this. No one was caught, and no one confessed. So they let it go, but the tension in the compound began to simmer. Chuka started making sly remarks about Lagos people and their flashy lives, while Amora rolled her eyes at Adora's manners, calling them too city for a village home. Then, one evening, Uncle Odo cornered Chuck quietly. You've done well for yourself, my son, he said. But don't forget, this is your father's house. Don't let all that money make you forget your roots. Chijuk met his uncle's gaze calmly. Uncle, I haven't forgotten where I come from. That's why I'm here. Udo gave a slow nod, but his face was unreadable. Not long after, Chijuk announced he was going to host a feast for the whole village. The news spread like wildfire. Some were excited. Others, like Uncle Udo, were not. This boy wants to show off, Udo muttered to his wife Onozi. Let's see who has the last laugh. On the morning of the feast, Chuck noticed several of the food items they'd bought had disappeared. Who could have done this? Adora asked, clearly upset. I don't know, Chijuk said, though something inside him whispered otherwise. But he didn't want trouble. He replaced the missing items and moved on. The feast was a success. Music, laughter, dancing, the whole village turned up. Udo and his family came too, smiling on the outside, but stewing in silence. A week later, Chuck sat under the old mango tree in the compound, staring at the worn-out walls and the cracked floor of the house he grew up in. Memories flooded back, playing hide and seek with his cousins, his father's deep voice telling stories, his mother's meals filling the air with rich aromas. This house had been filled with love once. Now, it just looked tired. He called Adora outside. Ada, he said softly, I've been thinking. This house deserves better. My parents gave everything to build it. I want to honor them. I want to fix it. Adora smiled and squeezed his hand. That's a beautiful idea, my love. It will show everyone you haven't forgotten your roots. Without wasting time, Chuck brought in builders from a nearby town. The next day, work began. The old walls came down. New ones rose with fresh cement. The rusted roof gave way to shining aluminum sheets. The village of Ophia buzzed with excitement. Every day, people gathered to watch the transformation, singing Chijuk's praises. Chuck is a blessing to this family, one old woman said. His parents must be smiling from heaven. But not everyone was happy. In the far corner of the compound, Uncle Udo sat stiffly, lips tight. Onozi sat beside him, arms crossed. He thinks he's better than us, Udo muttered. Yes, Onozi nodded. He's showing off, and now they're calling him King of Kings. Who does he think he is? Chuka and Amora said little, but the shame was there. They had grown up in the same house, yet they had done nothing for it. Slowly, their father's bitterness began to seep into them. One evening, Uncle Udo gathered his family behind the house. This can't continue, he said, voice low and firm. The more he does, the more we fade. Do you want to live in his shadow forever? What can we do, Papa? Chuka asked quietly. He has money. We don't. Udo's eyes narrowed. Money isn't everything. There are other ways. We'll make sure he regrets ever coming back here. He thinks he can just show up and shine because of money. I'll show him I have something more powerful. The next day, more trouble brewed. Chuck noticed that bags of cement and aluminum sheets had disappeared overnight. Furious but calm, he called a meeting with the workers. Please, he said softly. Who took the materials? The workers looked around, puzzled. We don't know, sir. Chuk suspected sabotage but didn't point fingers. He quietly replaced the missing materials and hired a night guard to protect what was left. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the village, Uncle Udo began to whisper. Do you know why Chijuk is spending all that money? He asked a group of villagers. He wants to claim the. Chijuk had slowly taken over the entire compound. Soon, it seemed, he'd drive everyone else out. He was even threatening to throw out his own uncle. Rumors began to spread through the village, and people started to grow uneasy about Chijuk's intentions. He noticed the change, fewer people were coming around, but he couldn't quite figure out why. One evening, Adora approached him. Chijuk, something doesn't feel right, she said gently. The villagers who were praising you just last week now seem distant. What's going on? I don't know, he replied, his brows drawn in confusion. But I'm not letting it stop me. This house will be finished, no matter what. By the end of the week, the renovation was done. The house stood tall, freshly painted, with sleek modern touches. To celebrate, Chijuk threw a small party and invited the entire village. Uncle sat quietly in a corner during the celebration, his face tight with anger. His plan to turn the villagers against Chijuk had failed. Still, as the music played and laughter filled the air, he leaned close to his wife and whispered, "This isn't over. I'll find another way." The newly renovated house shimmered under the bright Afia sun. Chijuk sat on the veranda, letting the cool village breeze wash over him.